So recently, Dubov made a very interesting comment on one of the podcasts that he's been on recently, and it was targeted at you. Let's see what he had to say and your reaction to it.
So the goal is basically to become at least of the same level as Magnus in terms of chess strength.
No, not Magnus, of course, but like Fabi, let's say. Fabi, actually, in that sense, Fabi is a very, very inspiring example because for me, like, I really hope Fabi, if you will watch this, like, that's what I think. And it's actually, like, I mean it as a compliment. I seriously think that Fabi is probably, like, in terms of the natural gift, Fabi is, like, one of, like, I don't know, like, he's arguably the least talented player of the whole, like, top, I don't know, 20, 30. At least for me. And it's very inspiring because with Magnus, I mean, sometimes you see those, like, moments of genius. And you can say to yourself, okay, like, I don't know how I mean, like, I cannot do this. I can work a lot, still I cannot do this. And, you know, and it's not going to change, apparently, because there are just things that he feels and you cannot do much about it. But with Fabi, like, I don't think there is, like, a single thing, like, chess thing that Fabi can do and, like, many, many other players cannot. I don't think it exists. It's very much about the winner's mentality. It's about his routine. Openings, a lot of work, tremendous amounts of work.
So basically what he says is that you're putting in absolutely tremendous amounts of work. You're the least talented, naturally gifted player in the top 20, which I think is complete bogus. But yeah, I want to see your reaction to that.
Well, okay, so first of all, Dubov says that he doesn't mean it as like a criticism or insult, which I think is true. And he means it as a compliment, which again, I'm certainly not taking this as a personal thing. So I don't see it as either an insult or a compliment. He says it's a compliment. Some people would see this as a bit of an insult. Some would say it really depends on your perspective of what you would call a natural gift and what you would call hard work, and which is more valuable to. It's going to be a very individual thing. The thing which I never really understood is, like, when we say natural talent, I don't really know what this means. Like when we talk about someone's level, we understand, we go by rating and tournament victories, accomplishments, and so on. And there's like objective criteria, right? You know, Hikaru is this rating, Magnus is this rating, Alireza is that rating, and then we can measure people by their results. When we speak about talent, it's not something that's really quantifiable. Right? So it's going to be a very subjective thing, and usually, I think we use it as a helpful metric, a subjective metric, but still a helpful one to determine if, like, a young player is very promising. So you talk to or you work with, let's say, an 8-year-old player, and of course they're not very strong yet, but you can see or you can try to gauge how strong they will be in the future, and we call that, like, natural gift, right?
I think it's just instincts, right? Instincts, understanding of where to place, natural understanding of where to place the pieces. And as you mentioned, this generally comes at an early age, and you can kind of understand where that player is going to go based on that. I think this is what he's hinting at.
Okay, but again, it's like natural feel for where to put the pieces. I mean, we speak about this for determining if, like, a young player will get very, very strong. But of course, top players all have natural feeling of where to put the pieces. And of course, yeah, it may vary, but then there's also other aspects of chess, like calculation ability, tactical awareness, which I think is one of my weaker sides. And I think that's one of Hikaru's strongest sides. And also one of Magnus's strongest sides is, like, just quick tactical awareness.
Tactical awareness, really?
Yeah, but there's, like, a million factors in chess. Like my structured calculation is probably one of my stronger sides, and in the past it's been more of a stronger side. Like, now it's changed a bit, but in the past I think that I was in terms of, like, ability to accurately and thoroughly calculate a position, I was maybe the best, or equal best. And now I don't think that's really the case anymore, because chess has changed and players have changed and I've also changed. But we're talking about different things in chess, not about talent, but about skills, right?
Yes.
When we say talent, what does it mean? It's like someone who is completely raw And someone who's completely raw is someone who hasn't been exposed to much chess. So we're talking about young players. So again, we're talking about what metric can we use to determine if a young player will become very good. But when we're talking about 30-year-old plus players, like me, Magnus, Hikaru, and so on, I don't really know what talent means. Like you have ratings and you have accomplishments, which determine skill, and we don't really know what went into the skill. Like how did you get that skill?
And I think this is something that Gary also mentioned when he was on our podcast. He mentioned the fact that the work that you're putting in, the routine that you're setting up for yourself, and the work that you're willing to do should be a part of the talent, should be a part of the talent discussion.
Yeah, of course. I agree. Being able to work hard is, first of all, essential. And it is also an ability in itself. You could call it a talent if you want. But it's also one that pretty much everyone at the top possesses. There's not a single player, I'll just get like the top 30 list or the 2700 list. And especially if we look at the top 10. But if we look at anyone over 2700, there's not a single player who has not devoted enormous amounts of work. Now, there are players who have worked more or less than others. And it's hard to measure that because we don't know, right? We don't have insight into everyone's work routine and their work ethic. If we're talking about like Magnus, he maybe has worked the most just because he's played so many world championship matches, and to prepare for a very clear goal like that, you essentially get a bunch of people together and then you work all day for weeks at a time. And that's because we've done this, right? For big goals like the candidates or the world championship match that I played. But he's played 5 world championship matches, so he's done that absolutely dedicated work more than other people at the top, except for maybe Vichy, who has, like from my understanding, has one of the best work ethics in. And I'm not speaking from experience with him, but I've heard from people who worked with him, like Rustam Kazimjanov, that basically his work ethic is unparalleled. But especially when you have a clear goal like a world championship match, it's very easy to motivate yourself for that type of work. Well, if your goal is, let's say, to win some open tournament, it's a lot less motivating.
And I think this is part of why you have achieved such longevity at the top, because outside of the candidates, outside of the world championship match that you've trained for, you also putting enormous amounts of work every single day. And I think this is something that he's touching upon as well. The mentality, the winner's mentality. Actually, what do you think he means when he says you possess a certain winner's mentality that allows you to stay at the top compared to everybody else in the top 20 that might, oscillate between being in the top 10, being in the top 20, or falling out of it?
Well, so again, now it's another sort of vague term, which will mean something to Dubov that may mean something different to me, right? When I hear of like winner's mentality, and I think also people will disagree about who has like more winner's mentality or who has less, because this is again quite a subjective sort of thing. I would say he means that like when you approach a game or when you approach a tournament, you basically think I'm here to win it, and you kind of think you're the main character in a sense, right? Not that like you are a second party to someone else, but that you're the one who's there to win, and then you're just facing an obstacle. Which again, I think I do possess that to a great extent. That would be my interpretation of it. But again, if you look at the top, I think like from players I've played against, obviously Magnus has that in about the greatest quantity that you can imagine. And I would also say that Hikaru, although at times I felt like he has lost his motivation and will to win. But generally speaking, yeah, he does view himself as like the guy to go and win, right?
Yes.
And from the young players like Gukesh, Arjun, and Noterbeck, although I don't know them too well, it's very evident that Gukesh does possess this and that Noterbeck does possess this. And with Alireza, it's a bit less clear again, because I don't know. It's like I'm not in someone's head, right? So you can maybe read too much into someone's into someone without knowing really how they are or who they are if you don't know them quite well. But okay, with Alireza, it's clear that still he's like trying to win every tournament he's playing. So again, who at the top does not have this sort of winner's mentality, if you want to call it that?
Yeah, winner's mentality, killer's instinct. I guess some people would call it. There's different names for it, I would assume. Anyway, I think this probably sums up our answer to Dubov, our reaction.
I just want to say, like, I understand his opinion. I'll just like finish up quickly. Like, I understand more or less what he's going for, but I feel like this is a issue of kind of vague language, which maybe means something to him that it means something different to someone else, and it's not a very accurate metric. So when he says like someone is the most or the least talented in chess among the top 50 or top 30 or whatever, then I don't exactly know what that means. And I think that if he tried to start ranking people by their talent, he would realize that it starts to become a bit meaningless. Like maybe he would put Magnus at number 1 and nobody would argue, and maybe he would put Alireza at number 2. But then, like, besides some things that maybe people would agree on, there would be like very little agreement at some point. It would be like, who's more talented, Wei Yi or Wesley So, Jan Nepomniachtchi or Norbert Abdustar? It's you can't like how do you say this? How do you determine this? So that's basically what I think. It's something which doesn't have a clear meaning for me.
I think it's quite subjective and it's based on everybody's interpretation. Now, to illustrate his point, kind of give him the benefit of the doubt, we should go into an analysis of one of your games that you played today against Vincent Keymer, Division 3 semifinals. You're with the white pieces, and there's quite a fun story behind that game. So I think we should do that now.
Sure. Yeah. Let's look at it.
Perfect. All right. Tell me the story behind it, and let's start. We're starting on move 1.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm playing Vincent in a 4-game match in the Division 3 of the Champions Chess Tour, and I'm thinking what to play last night. And I see that he kind of consistently goes for this very, very sharp line against the English. So it starts c4. I'm playing with the white pieces.
Mm-hmm.
Knight f6, knight c3, e5. So this is the reverse Sicilian. Knight f3, knight c6, and g3, which is kind of the main move in a sense, although there are many, of course, other moves. g3, and here black has a wide choice. Things like d5, things like knight to d4, for example. But Vincent always goes for bishop to b4, which is a line which I have a lot of experience in. And I was attracted to it because I saw that he seems to like this. So I go bishop g2, he castles. I go knight to d5, attacking his bishop, but also allowing black to go e4, which is what he does. And now the knight is forced to go to the side, so it goes to h4. And I've played this position a few times, and one of my first times that I remember like checking it very seriously was in 2019. It was actually in Bucharest. It was this rapid and blitz event in Bucharest, which later became a classical event, part of the Grand Chess Tour. And
this is 5 years old preparation.
Yeah, so 2019, I'm checking, and I think I'm checking with Rustam, but I'm also checking on my own. And basically the main line here goes that black plays d6, white castles, and it's obviously a very sharp position because the e4 pawn is weak, the bishop on b4 is attacked. On the other hand, there's a knight on h4, so black plays g5, trapping the knight. The question is, what do you do with this knight? So white plays d4. And now the point is, if gh4, there's bishop g5, so that wins back the piece. So black plays h6. And this is basically the starting position of the line, with a lot of theory behind it. I've played 2 games here, one against Levon Aronian, the one that I mentioned, where I was preparing in 2019, and one against Andrei Yesipenko, a classic game from Vaikanze. So against Levon, I was thinking about what to play, and I saw there's various moves here. Among them, for example, h3, knight to e3. And I ended up playing a very weird move against Levon, bishop to e3, which didn't work out in the game. But I also had this idea that white could make an absolutely crazy move, which I won't say yet, but an absolutely crazy move, which you would never, like if I gave you 10 guesses, you just never think of it. Absolutely never.
If you
Of
want
course,
to try,
so I can't.
if you want to try your luck, you can pause the video right now and try to figure out the move. If you don't
It's
know
a move
it
which
yet.
has almost no logic. It has like one piece of logic, but you would never think of it. It looks absurd. And normally, if someone were to play it over the board, you would probably think that they're joking or something. It can't be.
Is this
So
a
then I
move
play
that's
against Echo.
recognized by the engine as well, or that's proposed by the
engine
engine?
doesn't really like it too. And in 2019, the engine liked it even less. So then a few years after the game against Levon, where I played bishop to e3, I'm playing Andrei Yasipenko. And again, I have this crazy move in mind, but it's a classical game, and the move itself is actually close to losing for white. Like, it's objectively bad, but it's very difficult for black to exploit. This is a classical game, so again, I think, well, I don't know, I'm not really ready to play this move. So I play another move, I think a3, and we draw the game. So I completely forget about the idea I have until last night, when I'm seeing that Vincent is playing this line consistently, and I think, okay, this is actually a rapid game. It's unlikely that someone could refute this move over the board, or on this. It's an online game, so on the screen, in a rapid game. So why not? I mean, it's the last chance that I'll ever have to play this. Nobody even plays this line anymore. It's completely forgotten. So what do I have to lose? So the move I play here, and I only had this idea last night to revive this idea, was g4, leaving the knight on h4 hanging, weakening the king side, leaving a pawn on g4 hanging too. It makes no sense.
It's an absolute madman move. This is a madman move. I mean, it makes absolutely no sense.
There's only like one way to explain this move, which is that the knight on h4 is hanging and trapped, so it's going to get lost. But g4 does open up the idea of knight f5. So I'm trying to save my knight. Now, basically, that gives black a choice. You should take something. You can take the knight on d5, you can take the knight on h4, you can take a pawn on g4. Now, the first really nice thing about move g4 is that taking the pawn on g4 with either piece allows white to play f3 and basically win the game. Like, white is winning if black takes on g4 with either knight or bishop. Especially with knight, I think that's even worse. And so the critical line here is that black takes the knight on h4, right? Very, very obvious.
Yes.
Then white captures on h6, and the other point of g4 is that black, after playing the move h3, like, the pawn is no longer supported in many lines. So that's basically the only way to explain it. Like, we force black to capture the knight on h4, and then we get the pawn on h6, and we start to get some attack. And one main idea is that the bishop on b4 is very often getting trapped. So sometimes white regains the bishop on b4, sometimes white gets the rook on f8. And so the material investment is sometimes acceptable for white. Like, so you do very often get the material back. Now, the issue is that
what's the assessment? What's the objective assessment of this position?
It's like minus 0.6, 0.7. So I'm actually proud that in 2019, basically, I figured out all the secrets of the position in analysis. And I looked over my analysis from 5 years ago last night, and I didn't find anything like radically different. Like, everything I concluded back then was correct.
As an estimate, how much time do you think you spent in this position, in this line, in 2019?
I don't know, maybe few. I mean, we're counting in hours, but the question is, like, over how many days. I definitely didn't do it in one sitting, but yeah, maybe 10 hours of analysis.
Okay. That's fair.
Which is something like that. I can't assess it exactly. Now, the issue is that if black knows what to do after bishop takes h6, knight d5, cd5, and then the move h3 is extremely strong, and black is much better. But you have to either know this, otherwise you probably can't figure this out. Like, maybe you could figure it out. But
to be honest, even right now, looking at it, it doesn't make much sense. I mean, you can take on e4. You're basically forcing me to take a central pawn.
Yeah, you take on
e4. Probably queen h4 or something like that, right? Or a rook to e8.
No, and then just knight b8.
Knight b8.
Yeah, the point is that the pawn h3 is a huge asset.
But the computer says white is winning right now after g5.
Oh, sorry. Rook e8 first.
Rook e8 first. Got it.
Rook e8 first. Bishop to f3.
Uh-huh.
And now knight to b8.
Got it.
And okay, so you saved your rook on e8 with this move h3, so you gained a tempo on the bishop on e4, kind of like saving the rook so it's not captured, which means black is up a piece, and then the knight goes to b8, which is very important. If the knight goes to e7, white is no longer worse after bishop to g5. So the knight goes to b8, and then because pawn h3 is so strong, black has queen h4 ideas, and the position is a mess. But black is close to winning in many lines, so it was a risk. But not a huge one, I think.
Yeah.
And the good news is that basically after like 3 minutes of thought, Vincent, I think his feeling was that I can't figure this out over the board. So I'm just going to make a move and try to survive later.
Yeah.
But after move g4, he made the move rook to e8, which allows white to save the knight to f5.
And now you're better, basically.
Winning, actually.
Oh, you're winning.
Basically winning, yeah. Like rook e8 is already a losing move. And then he played knight takes g4. And it was actually a bit silly because here white wins with one simple move, which is knight to g3. And I was kind of thinking about it. I was like, okay, knight g3, knight f6. And the simple move is queen to a4. And the bishop on b4 gets lost. So that was the easiest win. Instead, I played a move which also wins, but it turns the game into a bit of a mess, which is the move f3. And Vincent started to play quite tenaciously. He took on f3, e takes f3. I was counting on the fact that we're trading knights and I am going to trap the bishop on b4 later, which is what happened. Knight takes h2, knight takes h6 with check, king to g7, king takes h2, rook to h8, which is an important move because otherwise black doesn't even get counterplay on the king side. And now I trap the bishop, so a3, bishop to a5, b4, rook takes h6, king g1. So now at least black has like the h-file with some activity there. Here he played, of course, the bishop on a5 is trapped, so he's losing that piece. But he's going to try to create an attack. So he played bishop to h3. It's a desperate attack, but still in rapid it can be difficult to deal with an attack. So rook to a2 I played.
That's a nice
getting
move.
the rook into defense.
I like it.
Bishop to b6, c5. So now the bishop is again still trapped on b6. And now he played bishop to e6. I had seen this in advance. That's why he provoked the rook to a2. But I saw the move f4, defending my knight with the bishop on g2, and also opening up some lines against black's king, potentially. Now he played g takes f4. I finally took the bishop on b6. I actually expected him to take back on b6, but he found this very interesting resource, queen to h4. And now I made a mistake. So basically, the first thing I thought was bishop takes f4. But then after rook g6, I realized that, okay, he's threatening bishop takes d5. It's not easy to defend this knight because the bishop on g2 is pinned. But I missed the move knight to e3, saving the knight because bishop takes a2, knight f5.
Ooh, that's nice.
Which is a simple tactic. I should have seen this.
Yes.
And that would have won the game.
Yes.
Instead, I played rook takes f4. And I saw that there is a line which leads to an endgame here. But I thought it was winning. The line is queen to h2, which he played. King to f1. And now he has this resource, queen to h1 check. Sacking the queen temporarily. Take, king to e2. Rook d1, king d1, bishop d5. And now I saw the move rook g4, and I thought I'm winning because king f6, I give another check, and I take on c7. But it turns out that actually it's not winning. After I take on c7, he rounds up that c pawn with, for example, rook c8. Or, I don't know, maybe also king d7. I didn't really analyze the position, but something like that. And he has very decent drawing chances. So the move rook takes f4 was a pretty serious mistake.
Yeah.
But luckily, he didn't play queen to h1. He made a kind of desperate move. I think he played rook to g6, which is logical. But after queen to f3, I deal with the threat of bishop takes d5. And rook to g3, attacking the queen, queen to e4. I saw this move, of course. The queen is safe there. Rook to e8, and now a very important final move, rook to h4, and the queen on h2 is trapped. And okay, he blundered mate in 1, but it was already game over. So he played rook to h3, there's queen h7, among other things that are winning, but queen to h7 is the mate next move.
That's very nice.
And that was the game.
Very nice. Well, if anything, I think that illustrates Dubov's point. Your working routine is quite impressive, I have to say, and you continue to do so throughout the year. So nice game. All right, that's it for us. Let us know in the comments if you've enjoyed this, if you've enjoyed this type of recap and of Fabi's most impressive games. If you do, maybe we'll continue to do so. Anyway, let us know what you thought about the game in the comments, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.